everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and a brand new series for the channel which we're calling Unsolved Mysteries, with a little bit of a wink to the because some of these mysteries we're going to be solving in real time in the videos, and others are going to be solved kind of maybe after the fact. Maybe you'll know the answer because sometimes you don't find it. But what today we're taking a look at is D and D2 from WARP, because WARP and Kenji Eno did a lot of really strange things with their save files, and there's some secrets that we have just recently discovered. And I didn't do this in an echo chamber. I had help from two people, Arcane Arya and Turn Up the Beat, on the 3DO Discord channel. I will leave a link to that channel in the description below. But when you first get D for the original 3DO, this original copy, it has some really strange things going on in it. And what we have to do is actually take the front of the case apart, because there's this red piece of plastic. You ever remember those like puzzles when you were a kid in the 80s or 90s where you had to hold this piece of paper over something and something would appear? That's what we're dealing with. And it was the weirdest thing, and the only way you would ever know something's going on is through the little hole in the back of the jewel case. You can see something, but you're not quite sure what's underneath there. Now, this has been known for a while that it exists. Japanese blogs have talked about it, but no one was really able to figure out exactly what it did, unless somebody else knows, and you can leave a comment in the description below if we're not the first people to find this. But if you use this piece of paper right here, and that Japanese says, bad translation because I'm doing it from memory, use this in the end. If you move that piece of paper down, suddenly you get a code, LRRL-ABBA-CCB, left, right, right, left, ABBA-CCB, and you put that code somewhere in the game. Now, if you've never played the original D, there are situations where you can find these scarab beetles in the game. There's 4 of them, and to get the best ending, you have to collect all 4, and they appear in different spots in the game. As far as I can tell, I've encountered them in different spots, so getting a run where you get all 4 beetles successfully can be quite challenging, and you do have to get all 4 beetles to be able to use that code in the end of the game. But you'll see here, when you do get those beetles, it gives you a little bit more of the backstory of what's going on. And we've talked about D, the game, on the channel before, and D2, both the Dreamcast version and the 3DO M2 version, which I've been trying to find and researching for the longest time. You can kind of see why this mystery appealed to me. But you'll see here that we find out, spoiler alert, Laura murdered her mother in her childhood. But without getting these scarabs, you don't get that story detail. And without the story detail, you can't get the best ending. And without getting the best ending, we can't actually use the code that we just found underneath the jewel case. So that's something that you're definitely going to have to do. But running the game takes maybe an hour if you know what you're doing. And you enter this code in at the end of the game after it says thank you for playing. And suddenly you're greeted with this screen right here. Thank you for discovering. And the Japanese translation basically says, look for something coming up. And it saves a particular save file to your 3DO that'll then be used later on down the line. But now we're taking a look at D's Diner, the director's cut. There's a little bit of a translation thing. It's either D's Diner or Dinner Table of D. Obviously D being Dracula, but there's a little bit of wiggling around of what the name actually is of the game. But since we know that there was a code in the first one, I had never checked, and up until this point, nobody realized that behind the jewel case, there's a little bit extra. And you'll see here, if you put this disc in disc C, there's no way to pick option 3 or 4. But if we use the save data from the original D, putting in the code, magically that all of a sudden becomes accessible, and we can watch D Goes Overseas, which is just different translations. But if we start taking this case apart, magically we're going to find out that there's something behind it. And you can almost see a little bit of red through the jewel case spindle. Again, they made it obvious enough that something was in there, but I had never taken this copy apart, and I've had it for years. But now all of a sudden we get another code. But it just says Laura over and over again, and we kind of turn this over in our heads, trying to figure out what's going on. But every time I encounter Japanese, I use Google Translate. It's not perfect, but it'll get you the gist of things. All you do is take a photo and swipe over it. I highly recommend the application. It's free, and it works enough. And the translation through Google Translation, which is probably not direct, is on the screen on the end, which means we have another code to put in. And somebody thought, is Laura left A up, right, and A? We had to be able to beat the game again and see what happened to see if we could get that 4th option available. But before we get too far into the original D, we do need to talk about D2 and the secret save file that this generates. This is Kaze no Regret, and it is a game that's basically designed entirely for people that cannot see. It's an audio story, and inside the case, it has different, what the Japanese call feelies, different little things that are in the case. But if we take a look behind the discs, we can see Kenji Eno and WARP are not hiding any codes here, which kind of makes logical sense, because if this is a game designed for people who cannot see, it would be really strange to leave something that you had to see. And it comes with a seed packet. I've always wanted to plant the seeds, but I never have. But what we're really looking for is the D2 Shock demo, which was included in this game, and it is a pre-release demo of D2 for the Dreamcast. And moving over to the Dreamcast copy here, and yes, I own a lot of different copies of D and D2. It's one of my favorite series, but it's probably even obsessive for me. Again, nothing behind that disc, and we do have this blue piece of paper that's the same plastic, but as I use it all over the cases, I can't find a single place where there would be any sort of code. It's a calendar for the year 2000, and boy does that feel like it was a long time ago, but I can't see where they're using any codes, and I don't think there are, but it is interesting that they use the same materials, and I flipped all through the manual trying to see if there's anything that looked like you could use that blue cellophane. This green and red area looked like something that would work, but again, nothing is showing up, so there's nothing really there to see. But I did want to approach that as an option considering they used it in the original D, but Kenji Eno did some crazy things with his games. One game came with a condom. One game that we just saw, Kaze no Regret, came with seeds. He loved putting really strange things into his games for you to kind of interact with and get just like a sense of his imagination and his ability to make things, not only games, but music. But if we use the D2 Shock disc right here and we put that into our Dreamcast, it has demos from the game, some opening movies, things that you can interact with, but secret save data is what we really need, because that is going to unlock something in the retail D2 discs, and you can see that WARP and Kenji Eno loved using this kind of save situation. And if I translate this over, and I'm doing this from memory, it basically just says to press A to put a save onto your VMU that you'll be able to use in the future, and B just says to exit. But it's giving you the same information that the original D on 3DO did, which was to look for something in the future to use this save file on. And then it'll just say that the save file's on your VMU and to look for something moving forward. And we can obviously imagine that was going to be on D2. And this is something that has been known for a while, although it's pretty niche. But taking a look at the retail Japanese copy of D2, if you have that save and you go into Secret Movie, you're going to be able to access one of the original trailers for the 3DO M2 version of D2, which is a game that I've been looking for forever. Really the biggest unsolved mystery is it out there? Can I find it? Can I afford it if someone wants money for it? It's really just a struggle that I continually look for this game. Maybe one day I'll find it. I found pieces of it, but not the actual demo executable. But this was just something fun that Warped loved doing, is just hiding these little things for their fans. And the fact that they were hiding these behind jewel cases with just a little bit of color through the CD spindle made it a really fun adventure, and it's been a fun story to kind of solve some of these things. And being able to see a piece of D2 is awesome. It was removed from the North American version, but moving back to this little lore code here, but Arcane Aria did go through and beat the director's cut with all 4 scarabs, and he used the lore code, left A up, right and A, which was Turnip Beats Guess, and in fact, it did give us another screen, and that screen, just like the original D, says thanks for discovering, or thank you for discovering, and that allows you to put another save file on your 3DO internal memory for the director's cut, just like in the original D. And when you have that save data and you relaunch the game, suddenly that 4th menu option that's been gray for forever, no one knew how to unlock it, is unlocked, and you can watch the FMVs from D, either the original version or the director's cut, in any order you want. But that was Kenji Eno and Warp and their crazy inventive save game secrets. But thanks so much for watching. We will be back with another episode of Unsolved Mysteries when we get around to it. It's not going to be a regular series, but one that I do when I feel like it. But if you could do us a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe. It takes a lot of time and energy to make these episodes, and so a lot of mental processing to figure this secret out. But we will be back on Sunday and Tuesday with more videos. But thanks so much for watching, and if you have any suggestions for new secrets to cover, just leave them down below. Bye-bye.